Okay, we are live on another episode of the Edlow podcast. Subscribe. That's what everyone tells me. Subscribe. So there you go. We are here. This is a special one for me. I am a big fan of cinema, especially 80s and 90s cinema, and we have a guest here that personifies that. One of my favorite Disney movies, The Mighty Ducks. We have here Goldberg, but not that Goldberg. We have the Mighty Ducks Goldberg, Shaun Weiss. Mr. Weiss, thank you for coming on the Edlow podcast. How are you doing, sir?
I'm good. You tipped it a little bit, Josh, when you said from the Mighty Ducks, but
Right.
I'm fantastic. I will have you know, I met the other Goldberg,
Yeah.
and I don't think I've ever met a sweeter guy on this
Yeah.
earth. He's like overly nice, so
Yeah.
sweet. And
Yeah.
I said, man, I'm a big fan of yours because when they came out with those Goldberg shirts back
Yeah.
in the '90s, I had one of those. I was wearing one of those, and so I said, "Man, I used to wear your T-shirt," and he said, "I used to wear your jersey." So that was a
Yeah.
very cool moment.
Yeah, I bet. That's awesome. I remember back in the 90s, I've been a lifelong wrestling fan. And when I first started, you had to be kind of quiet about it because everyone thought you were kind of a nerd. And then when that happened, I remember I was wearing a Stone Cold Steve Austin shirt under my jacket, and some
Oh
dude
yeah.
walked in with a Goldberg shirt. So I had to pull it out and be like, "Let's do this, man." So it was really cool. But the Mighty Ducks is for my generation, that's one of the movies that personifies. Everybody saw it, everybody loved it, and Goldberg was such a lovable character, going from being afraid of getting hit by a puck to being taped, duct taped to the goal and getting hit to becoming this amazing goalie in both of the Mighty Ducks 1 and 2. Were you in 3 as well?
Yes, I was.
Okay,
Thanks.
yeah,
Thanks for remembering, Josh.
yeah.
No, yeah, you said it really. I didn't. I never really think about it in those terms. But my character arc really is a story of overcoming your fear and having courage. I really haven't thought about it with that perspective too much. But you're absolutely right.
Yeah, yeah. Well, tell me. So, where did you start? I mean, child acting. We hear so many stories. How did you get into it?
I got my start. My mother took me to see a manager who was holding a talent scout in New York City.
Mm,
So it was probably a bit of a scam in that she probably took $400 from 1,000 kids. But a
mm-hmm.
couple kids she actually put in the business, and I was one of them. And she got me started working right away. I think a day or two after I met her, she had me auditioning for a Bill Cosby Jello pudding pop commercial, and I booked the part. I got my first audition, so I got
Nice.
I got off to a good start, and that's I really, from there it was just always really successful child actor. I probably booked most of the auditions I went in on. I would venture to say probably 50%.
Wow. So, do you have any idea what it is that you did differently than other people that made you so quickly booked?
I don't know. When I got a little older, people started likening me to Jackie Gleason, and I know that ended up getting me a lot of parts.
Ah, okay.
But before then, I had an outgoing personality, and I grew up with older brothers and sisters, so I would say adult things, and I think that kind of set me apart in the rooms when I went to audition.
Nice.
I would crack wise, and a lot of times, and I would say this was true for my whole career. I would book the part and book the auditions for like a joke I made in the room while I was auditioning, and I was getting
Right.
parts more for my personality than I was for my acting chops. And I think at some point that caught up to me.
Yeah. Nice. And so, um, where in the timeline is the Mighty Ducks? You do some commercials, and then is Mighty Ducks your first big part?
It was my first feature film, but I mean, I had done maybe 50 commercials, national commercials, and I
Mhm.
had done a lot of television work. I was on Pee Wee's Playhouse. I was one of the
Oh,
Playhouse kids, and I had a lot of jobs
nice.
like that. But as far as motion pictures, yeah, this was my first movie role.
How was doing Pee Wee's Playhouse? I loved that show.
It was amazing. Like they went out of their way to make it for the kids just feel like it was an actual playhouse. So when I think
Yeah.
back to it, I just think of like the chair and the, we were doing, I was in treatment recently, and everyone's talking about their childhood trauma, and they got to me, and I was like, well, yeah, my mom dropped me off to this guy's house, and he had a talking chair, and he had a genie that was in a box, and a pterodactyl that would talk to us. So really, that was my only childhood trauma was Pee Wee's Playhouse, and it wasn't too traumatic at all. It was kind of fun, but that was awesome. It
Yeah.
was just really, like I said, it was just like a fun place to hang out.
Yeah. So when you get the part in the Mighty Ducks and you see, Emilio Estevez is in it, it's a Disney film. How are you feeling about that? Is there pressure there, or were you just like, no, this is fun?
Yeah, I didn't feel any pressure at all, and it was incredibly fun. And hockey camp when we first showed up to the movie was a lot of fun. And yeah, no, there wasn't any pressure. We were just all really having a good time. And by that point, I was a seasoned enough child actor to where I wasn't nervous by like the focus of the lens or the lights or anything like that. I actually enjoyed it. I used to like that pressure, so to speak.
Nice. Did were you the most seasoned of the kids?
I don't think so. I think we were all had all been in the business for a while. I mean, I might have been might have been it. Actually, Josh, now you ask, maybe because by the time I did that role, I was 13 and I had been doing stuff since I was 6. So I
Yeah.
could have been the guy with the most credits. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna have to go back and do a deep dive now. Thanks a lot.
Well, let me ask that. We bring up child acting, and that's something I wanted to ask because there are so many there are so many kind of stories about child actors that ended poorly. What do you think it is about being a child actor that tends to do that?
I think that and there's a couple things. I know I can only speak for my own experience, right? So I know
Right.
for me, um, a lot of the things that sort of led to a meltdown. A couple of things.
Mhm.
One was I felt a lot of boredom
Mhm.
because when you're in the entertainment industry, things are moving so fast, and there's always so many things going on that everything was so exciting for me. So when the acting work went away, I was just kind of bored, and I didn't know what to do with myself, and that sort of helped me crack under pressure. And also it's sort of odd when you're young. It sort of changes the power dynamic in the household when you start making more money than your parents. It's
Mm.
becomes hard for them to discipline you. I know my parents had a tough time disciplining me once I was paying the mortgage. I don't even think they
Mm.
tried to anymore at one point. So I think the
Right.
combination of those two things, are probably not the healthiest of circumstances in trying to set up like a balanced adulthood.
Sure, sure. Well, and also, I got to imagine, I mean, when you're a child actor and you're famous, everybody wants to hang out with you. Things are probably available to you that aren't available to normal kids. Did you experience some of that as a kid?
Well, I mean, if you're talking about things like being available to me, like things that would only be available to adults. Um, by the time I was really coming into my own in the movie business, there was kind of a shift into like a whole like health paradigm. So people were
Mm.
just trying to be as healthy as they could, and um, I really couldn't blame my exposure to those things on the industry. Unfortunately, if that's kind of what
Mm.
you're digging for.
Mm. Okay. So yeah, because there is a part of your story. Well, before we go into that, let's just talk about the Mighty Ducks a little bit more. So on set, you're having fun. What give us some stories of stuff that happened on the set. That is there anything that sticks out to you as a funny story or anything like that?
Well, yeah, I mean, I've got 9 years worth of funny, stories making those movies. I mean, I'll tell you one thing that I do like to talk about whenever I do interviews is the scene that we shot during the first picture where we all go to the Minnesota Stars game. And
Mm-hmm.
I remember what it was like shooting that scene because we were all, earlier in the day we had shot in the arena with Mike Madonna and got to meet him, and he took slap shots on me, which I still have flashbacks of from time to time. And then then we shot the scene of us watching the game. The cameras were like out of sight. They were like far away. So we didn't even know there were cameras on it at one point. And we were all together and we were all watching this hockey game. And it really, for a minute, I really felt like I was on this team called the Mighty Ducks. And it was actually a reality. And,
Yeah.
I actually feel like that moment comes through on camera when you see that, because that scene
Yeah.
looks very authentic. And I think it's because it
Yeah.
was. Because I feel like I'm not the only one that felt that way. And I know that day was definitely, it was crucial in the camaraderie that eventually developed between us all.
Yeah, and that's something I wanted to ask. I got to imagine when you're filming the movie, did you guys know? I mean, it's kind of become somewhat of I wouldn't know if they call it a cult classic, but it's a classic film. I mean, did you guys know as you're filming it that it was going to become so popular?
I know that I definitely didn't know I didn't know heading into the first one that it would be as popular, and nor did I know after any of them that we'd be going back to make another one. So
Right.
no, it was all a happy surprise for me every time through. I don't know about the other kids; they may have
Yeah.
had better foresight, but not me. I mean, one thing that was odd for me was when I got the picture, when I found I was going to be doing a hockey movie, I was not thrilled about this because I was not a hockey
Mm.
fan. I was a
Right.
big
Right.
football fan. I was a big baseball fan. I was a huge fan of the Karate Kid. So I was telling my agent, get me a
Yeah.
baseball movie or a football movie or a kung fu movie.
Yeah.
So I just wasn't thrilled about hockey.
Yeah.
So that all changed after we started making the movies. Because getting to hang out like in the locker rooms and meeting some of the players, I think it would have been hard not to fall in love with. The game was a kind of access we had to.
Yeah. What was it about? What was it about that kind of made you fall in love? Is just learning the game as you were going
Yeah,
through it,
yeah.
or?
Learning the game, just it's a beautiful game, and then being there live is something you don't really pick up on when you're watching on television. The speed that they play
Right.
with, and the size and the skill of the players is something you don't get to unless you're in person. And I got a lot of exposure at the games. And yeah, I think there was something about whenever we would go to a game, we would get to go to the clubhouse and we would meet all the players, and they would give us signed sticks and skates. So I'm sure that all helped sweeten the pot as far as my falling in love with the game. I got like a
Yeah.
signed Gretzky jersey, so that
Oh, that's
helps.
awesome. Yeah, that
Yeah,
helps a lot. Yeah.
yeah.
You mentioned you're a Karate Kid fan, and I got to ask you, I run every time I run into Karate Kid fans, I ask if they've been following Cobra Kai and what you think of it.
I have, I haven't been, but I've been meaning to. I just,
Yeah.
I feel guilty when I watch too much television. I think there's
Uh-huh.
like so many things that I have to do. I'm a single man. I don't have any children. I live in a sober living, Josh. So for me to like put
Mm-hmm.
too many hours in on Karate Kid is hard for
Mm.
me. You know what I mean?
Oh, well, I'll tell you what, I do have kids, and I'll tell you what, I spend way too much time on that. I love
Yeah,
Cobra
but
Kai.
you can afford it. You've already
Yeah.
created some human beings. You know what I'm saying? You can relax. Whereas
Yeah.
I feel sort of like I have to do something, like valuable with my time.
Sure,
At least,
sure.
at
No,
least try to get them to make heavyweights too. At least.
yeah. Yeah, right. Yeah. So tell me, Mighty Ducks Heavyweights is also, I'd say Heavyweights is more of a cult classic than Mighty Ducks. Mighty Ducks is just wildly popular. Heavyweights is good there too. Tell me, what did you enjoy also filming Heavyweights? Was there that same camaraderie?
Yeah. Well, it was a different group of guys, but yeah, I enjoyed heavyweights immensely because we were at a summer camp, and for all intents and purposes, we acted like we were at summer camp. So that was just wildly fun. We spent the summer in North Carolina, and that was like I was starting to like smoke cigarettes, and I think I found like my first water bong around that time. So
Mm.
it was just a crazy time out there in North Carolina. It was a fun time for sure, but definitely a different group of kids. But I hung out mostly with Keenan the whole time, and I want to say Aaron too, but he was busy. He was in a lot of scenes that the rest of us weren't in. Aaron, who played
Mhm.
Jerry. So I guess
Mhm.
I just hung out with Keenan the whole time we were out there.
Nice, nice. I was going to ask you too. Is there anybody with the Mighty Ducks or heavyweights that you really bonded with or keep in contact with?
I mean, I've literally bonded with everybody, and it's like saying, like, are there any different brothers or sisters that you bonded with? Um,
Yeah.
I in later life, I do spend a lot more time texting back and forth with Garrett Henson, who played
Mm.
Guy.
Mm.
Um, and when we were kids, me and Averman were kind of inseparable on the set of 1, 2, and 3.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Nice, nice. You guys. So that's what's so interesting because I did an interview on another podcast with Sean Kanan from Karate Kid 3, and then I did one with one of the guys who did Cobra Kai, and it's so interesting to find out the camaraderie that people have, particularly if you're going to be really into like I did one with the guy who did Cobra Kai. His name is Bo, and he was talking about him and one of the other characters were going to be really close, doing a lot of scenes together. So they spent like 5 hours together getting to know each other, and then they just became really good friends. And it's just interesting the methods for that. Is that kind of what your experience was too? You spend so much time, you just naturally become friends.
Absolutely. And when you say like, well, we spent 5 hours together, we spent months together, and we would see each other
Yeah.
all day, every day. And
Mm.
when we would go to hockey camp for 5 or 6 hours, we would go to the hotel and hang out with each other at the hotel or the complex. So we just spent a crazy amount of time together, and
Mm-hmm.
definitely, there's a certain amount of bonding that comes through that, and also just being part of those movies. And like when we, after we made the first movie, seeing what we made, like making something special together, I think
Mm-hmm.
also made us closer together for sure. And definitely as
Wow.
adults, like
Yeah.
we're definitely bonded in a way that's like, sort of indescribable.
Sure. Sure. Do you still at times? I mean, do people come up to you and just Goldberg? Do they do anything like that? You
Yeah, I
see
get
that
that a
sometimes?
lot. I really I hadn't had it for a while lately, but then I sort of got back in the press a little bit, so I do get recognized frequently now. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you? I know some actors don't like that. Some do, or some just kind of it's part of the deal. How do you feel about that?
The latter. I feel like it is totally part of the deal. And
Mm-hmm.
do I mind it? Never. I don't really mind it ever. I mean, I imagine there could be some situations where it's probably not awesome, but
Sure.
I'm always sort of ready to share a connection. Like when I meet people that come up to me, they're not like, "Hey, I saw you. You're that guy from TV." I meet people that are like, "Hey, man, I grew up watching your movies." So
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like they deserve that one-on-one moment.
Yeah, no, that's cool. I always love that. I heard Jerry Seinfeld one time. One of the another comedian was telling him how much he hates that, and he goes, "What do you do when they say hi?" I go, "Hey, how you doing?" You know, it's like,
Yeah, sure.
and so,
What do you do when
um,
people want to take pictures? I take the picture.
yeah,
I mean,
right, yeah,
people for the most, I know, and for me, it's probably different for someone of his level, but people are always nice and respectful and loving with me. I've never
yeah.
really had a situation that got annoying or anything like that.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So part of your story is you have a little bit of a rough patch as a child actor and pull out of it. I know that you're in recovery. You had some issues with drugs, and tell me where did that start in the process for you, or in your chronology?
Where did it start? And well, it probably started when I was very young, just by
Mm-hmm.
like dabbling in alcohol and things like that. And like I say, I really fell into sort of a depression when I wasn't in show business anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And so like I said, I really couldn't blame my substance issues on Hollywood. I guess I could indirectly. I mean, I guess you could always blame somebody if you want to. But
Right.
eventually, the I wasn't in the business anymore, and I kind of got depressed over it. And for a while there, I really didn't even see myself being on camera ever. And even if somebody pulled out a video camera, I wouldn't even let them record me. So
Mm.
thankfully, I went into treatment, and I'm in recovery. January 25th of 2023 was my 3-year mark.
Wow. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
you
you
know,
very much.
it
It feels
it's
slightly odd, Josh, getting congratulated for something like that because, it's like congratulate. It's like telling someone, "Hey, good going on not electrocuting yourself." Like
yeah.
that was a good move. It's like we're not supposed to murder ourselves with drugs. So I feel slightly odd accepting credit for that, but I am proud of it, and
Yeah.
only because like it's so few people really come out the other end of it. So I
Yeah,
am proud that I was able to.
well, I also congratulate you for another reason. My dad, I've been pretty public about this on my podcast. My father is over 25 years sober, and he had a rough go most of my childhood. And I can tell you, it's funny because I think I was 17 when he came out of rehab, um, and looking at him now, he's a completely different person, completely different. In
Yeah.
fact, I have a sister who's 21 years younger than me, and
Oh wow,
I keep telling her, I'm like, the dad you have is a
it's a
completely
different
different
dad.
dad.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and,
he's
and thank
completely
God,
different.
right?
Yeah, yeah, it's
Did he?
interesting.
Did he do? Was he a 12-step guy?
Yeah, yeah, he
Yeah.
did. He got
He-
into NA and all that.
there are more stories like that, Josh, of 12 steps turning people's lives around,
Yeah.
and it sounds like another example of that.
Yeah, yeah, and I gotta give him credit for a few things. A lot of people, and it sounds like you're very similar to this. A lot of people, they blame others for a lot of the things that they do, and he, to his credit, he got into therapy and stuff like that, and he told them right out the gate. Because then my mom, she also did what do you call it, Al-Anon, which is like the one for the people who are
Oh yeah,
related to, and
sure.
uh, and she went into the therapist and she was worried that he was going to say, well, she drove me to this and she's like that, and he just said no, it has nothing to do with her at all, and he just took it on himself and said this is all on me,
Good for
and
him.
uh, and I think that was part of the reason probably why his recovery has gone so well is because he accepted that he's the one who needed to change.
Yes, look, taking ownership and accepting responsibility is almost, I was going to say square one, but I think surrender is square one. But
Yeah.
definitely, in your recovery, and that's one of the things that the steps help you do once you're taking your own inventory and righting your wrongs and making amends.
Yeah.
Just being ownership of your own um, past transgressions becomes an offshoot of the steps.
Yeah.
So, uh,
That's it's amazing the journey back. There's we my family, there's a lot of people who've had the issues who didn't make it, so it's impressive. That's why I say congratulations for making it, because it's hard,
thank you
it's
very
so
much.
hard. So but going back, you mentioned the depression. um how old were you, do you think, when you were, I mean, you dabbled in stuff very young, but how old were you when you would, looking back, say you started to fall off and get addicted?
Oh, I mean, addiction or depression?
The addiction.
Well, with my mother passed away in 2008, I believe, and the
Mm.
day she died, I drank a tall bottle of vodka, and
Wow.
I stayed drunk for 3 years without any exaggeration, from bottle
Wow.
to bottle, sun up to sundown. I would wake up, drink a bottle. I would wake up, vomit, then drink a
Mm.
bottle of hard booze, and
Wow.
I stayed drunk for 3 years. So that would be 2008. And really, I guess, really, that's when my troubles with, the long burn really started. Was with
Mm.
alcohol. I was able to quit alcohol, and then I kind of shifted into pills.
Mm-hmm.
And I was always still managing my life, though. My
Mm-hmm.
life hadn't really become unmanageable
Mm.
until my late 30s, when I
Mm.
had a bad breakup. I lost
Mm-hmm.
my father within a very short period of time, and when I found meth, it would like help me not think about things. So
Sure.
it was working as an antidepressant for me at first.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah, and so now tell me, look, you're talking to a guy. I have been lucky enough, the addiction gene runs deep in my family, and for some reason, it's funny because I have family members that weren't like this, but for some reason, I just saw that and said, "Boy, never gonna touch that stuff."
Well, that's intelligence, really. That I mean,
Yeah,
I've always said that's what intelligence is: being able to learn from other people's mistakes. You didn't have to go touch the stove to know it was hot.
right,
So
right.
good for you.
So, but tell me, as someone who's never, I mean, I've never done meth. Like, what is it like?
I mean, it's like trying to describe to somebody what an orange tastes like. You know,
Mm, mm,
you feel, you definitely feel like you can accomplish anything,
mm,
and you don't ache anymore. Your
mm-hmm,
body feels strong, good, euphoric. There's a
mm,
warm, tingly feeling inside of you. And
mm,
you know that feeling like when you're about to go to a football game, you're about to do something exciting, you're about to go to a party, you have like an excited, tingling feeling in your chest. It's
sure.
that feeling times 10
Wow.
until
Yeah.
it wears off. And
Yeah.
then it's the opposite. Then it's
Yeah.
hell.
Yeah. Wow. So tell me what the come down's like when it's wearing off.
Well, I mean, it can be different things. When I was on meth, a lot of times I wouldn't sleep for weeks at a time. Yes, right, you heard me, weeks at a time. So
Wow.
even if the drug isn't giving you psychosis, not
Mm.
sleeping for weeks at a time will.
Yeah.
So it's not a good feeling, man, when you know you haven't slept in weeks and
Mm-hmm.
you're filthy and people treat you exactly the way you look,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just a hellish existence. I really wouldn't recommend it to anyone,
Yeah. Let's hope not. Yeah. Yeah.
especially when when it brings you to the depths that where I was homeless on the street, and
Yeah.
I mean that's I remember the last Christmas Eve that I was out there. I guess I was gotten arrested. I got in trouble in January, so I remember the
Mm-hmm.
last Christmas Eve I was out there, and I was outdoors. I couldn't find shelter, and it was raining
Mm-hmm.
on me. And I remember asking God, Why don't you just kill me? Why are you making me suffer like this?"
Mm-hmm.
So to go from that place to where I am now, which honestly, I mean, I've never been as content or happy or as healthy feeling in my life. So
Wow.
it really is a miracle and a testament to the 12 steps and a testament to the human spirit. And, you know, I want to let you know there isn't, I used to hear, I used to hear about other drug addicts getting clean. And I would think, well, they
Mm-hmm.
just don't like it as much as I do. Like I like it more because I couldn't imagine
Right.
stopping. Even when I was
Mm-hmm.
in
Mm-hmm.
treatment, I was like, well, I'll just quit long enough to bullshit them and get these people off my back, and eventually I'll be back doing what I want to do. So if a guy like me can get clean off the stuff, then I'm letting you know anybody can get clean. That is my
Yeah.
real method.
So, what do you think it takes? Like, we hear a lot about like rock bottoms, and you could probably only talk about your own experience. But tell me, what was it that got changed you from that to, you know what, I'm not doing this anymore?
Well, me specific, I think it does take a rock bottom, and I think what people call rock bottom sometimes isn't rock bottom. So
Mm,
I was in a jail cell facing 3 years for a felony burglary charge. That's rock bottom,
mm,
right?
yeah, right.
Making an asshole in front of your friends and losing your job isn't really
Mm,
rock bottom. That's just losing your job, making an asshole in front of your friends. So I do think rock bottom is necessary. And in my case, it was I didn't want to go to jail, and they gave me
mm,
a chance. And I said, listen, if you're going to give me that chance, I'm going to take it. And I had already wanted to really get clean. I was done living that lifestyle. And
mm,
for the first while when I was out there on the street, it was kind of fun for me, dude. I was like hustling. I was playing the part of
mm,
this like street hustler, and I was
mm.
kind of enjoying it. It was very exciting, robbing
Sure.
stores and hanging out with
Mm,
all these shady characters, and I just felt tough and cool in a way. But then after a while, I lost the ability to care for myself. I got sick, And once I got sick, I really couldn't care for myself out there on the street. And so I was hurting. I had pneumonia when I eventually got in trouble. And I couldn't take another winter, out on the streets of Los Angeles. So literally,
Right.
if I hadn't gotten in trouble, you know, without without trying to avoid bravado when I say this, I probably would have died had I not gotten in trouble when I did, and I really believe that.
Wow. Was it being on the streets of Los Angeles when you were kind of nearing that rock bottom? Were there still people who'd be like, "Hey, Goldberg from the Mighty Ducks or from Heavyweights"? Like,
Always,
did
yeah,
you
there
still?
were always those people, yeah.
Oh wow. And tell me what that was like. Was that kind of a reminder for you, or what did it? Did you even pay attention to that?
Well, I mean, it was, yeah. I mean, look, I feel like it kept me from getting killed. I feel
Mm.
like, yeah, I don't think anybody wanted to be responsible for killing the guy from the Mighty Ducks. So I think it definitely kept me alive because murders happen a lot, right? And I was in
Mhm.
situations where, like, if you're not going to get murdered by those people in that situation, then then
Yeah.
you're never going to get murdered. And a couple times, some dudes did try to kill me, and I was in the hospital one time for weeks with like puncture, with all my ribs were broken. I had a punctured lung, so I feel
Oh,
like,
jeez.
yeah, it was bad, bro. I feel like, uh, you know, if I wasn't that guy, I also would not be here. But it was also strange. I mean, some people looked out for me, and other
Mm-hmm.
people I kind of feel like made it harder on me, like deliberately
Mm.
picked on me, and there was kind of
Mm-hmm.
a target on my back in some situations. So
Sure.
I don't know. It was a mixed bag, man. But it was all part of my journey, which I can tell you, man. Like I didn't have any boring days out there.
Yeah. Right. Right. Did you ever? Well, that story now when they tried to kill you, like, you want to give us an idea of what happened? Like
Well,
why
I mean,
that happened?
some people owed me money, and I went to collect, and they had like they were staying in a homeless encampment that was kind of like the Skid Row of the San Fernando Valley.
Hmm.
And I went to get my money, and the guy wasn't there, so I waited, and I fell asleep. I waited in his tent. I woke up to about five guys pummeling me, and
Hmm.
they were just trying to kill me. I got up. I was able to get to my feet and get out of there. And
Hmm.
I walked across the street, and this was like a day that I'll never forget. And it was kind of a wake up call. I walked across the street,
Hmm.
and I was at a dollar store, and I walked in the dollar store, and I couldn't get anyone to call 911 for me. I was really
Hmm.
hurt. I couldn't breathe, and people were avoiding me like the plague because I looked like a homeless person. And that
Right.
day, I saw a side of humanity that I didn't really know existed.
Yeah.
Where like people will not even call 911 for you. And so I just laid
Wow.
down on the floor of the dollar store, and eventually an ambulance showed up about half an hour
Wow.
later. And yeah, they took
Wow.
me to the hospital. And the doctor told me that because at first I wouldn't allow them to put the chest tube in, and they told me that if I don't let them put the chest tube in, I won't survive. So I was like, all right, we'll take the chest tube.
Man, man. So now with recovery, so you've been recovered for 3 years. Do you have any desire to go back to doing any more projects in Hollywood or anything like that?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I've been for the last 6 months, I've been focusing on stand up comedy, but I haven't
Okay.
been doing the clubs or anything like that. I've just been doing open mics, trying to get my act up,
Okay. Yeah.
But really, I want to go and tell my story and help as many people as I can. But
Hmm.
really, I'm doing stand up comedy to try to get myself back into the acting business. If I'm being fully
Sure.
transparent with you.
Right, right. So, was there ever a role? I mean, you had those roles in kind of comedy kid movies. Is there a role that's like your dream role?
As an actor, yeah, I mean, definitely. I made a show on YouTube called Why Not Weiss, and
Uh huh.
basically I'm inspired by Curb Your Enthusiasm and Seinfeld and those shows. So my show is
Sure.
basically if Larry David didn't have 250 million, if he had no money. And so, but it's the same style of show. And I made 5 episodes called Why Not Weiss. In the fifth
Uh-huh.
episode, I was able to get Ron Jeremy, yes, the Ron Jeremy, to play my dad.
Wow. Wow.
And I got Kirk Fox, who's, according to me, the funniest human on the earth. who's also one of my favorite comedians. I got him to play the owner of the nursing home that my dad stays at. So I kind of created this little sitcom, and the dream was to make a full size sitcom in half the time. So my episodes are like 11, 12 minutes. So my dream
Nice.
role would be really making more episodes of Why Not Weiss. And definitely the
Nice.
subject matter where it was, him trying to deal with his dad and get stand up comedy gigs. The subject matter would now be him, being homeless and trying to like survive in a homeless encampment. So I'd like to make
Yeah.
episodes about that.
And would that sitcom be a comedy? Would it be more serious?
Yeah,
What would
yeah.
you?
It's
Yeah.
kind of like Curb Your Enthusiasm. It's definitely
Yeah.
looking at very serious, dramatic things, but through a funny lens. Absolutely.
Yeah. Nice. Between heavyweights and Mighty Ducks, dealing with Emilio Estevez and Ben Stiller, like who did you enjoy working with one of them more than the other?
Well, I mean, no, I wouldn't say that. I mean, it's kind of a.
Yeah.
I don't know how to answer that question. Well, let me think about it, and I'll give you a real answer. Emilio was just very easy to work with.
Uh huh.
Ben is a very intense guy, but
Okay.
both were fun to be around.
Uh
But
huh.
definitely different. It's a different vibe.
Uh
Emilio
huh.
and Ben.
Uh huh.
You know?
Yeah. 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 Did you? I mean, it seems like you probably had more experience because there were a couple movies with Emilio versus just the
Yeah.
one.
Yes. That.
But
Yeah. We got to know Emilio a little better.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, was that something when you were a child actor were you kind of starstruck by Emilio Estevez? I mean, he was pretty
Not
big at the
really, because
time.
I hadn't really seen a lot of Emilio's work. I knew he
Oh,
was a
okay.
movie star, but I was more starstruck around Pee Wee because
Oh
I'd
yeah,
seen
yeah,
Pee Wee's Big Adventure.
yeah. Pee Wee's Big Adventure is such a good movie. I was actually
It
talking
is
to another
still
guy. It's so good. It holds up. Yeah,
absolutely, and Pee Wee did a Netflix movie with Judd Apatow a few years back.
yeah,
Have you seen
yeah.
that?
I did. It's good.
I,
Yeah, I
I
like
thought it
it.
was great. I thought they were really able to, recapture that Pee Wee Herman style of humor. I thought it was awesome. And I got to
Yeah.
tell you, the opening few moments of that movie, it
Mhm.
really really is. Paul Rubens is that guy in real life. He is
Yeah.
like the sweetest man. He's just that guy. He's like a very sweet, gentle, loving guy. His heart is on full blast all the time to everyone he knows. So when
Yeah.
I watched that, I'm like, that really is like who he is. I mean, I don't think he walks around in the gray suit all the time, but
Right.
that's really who he is as a person.
I can't think of anything he's done that I didn't like. I mean, even like he was in Mystery Man, and that was
Oh,
funny.
dude, that
I
was so
mean,
funny.
yeah, such a good
He was in
movie.
Blow.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
tell me, as an actor, it always asks these questions of people who've done acting. Do you have like a top five favorite movies list?
Top five. I mean, dude, I'm such an avid movie lover. I mean,
Uh huh.
I could list off five movies that I love. I
Yeah.
could list them off quickly.
Yeah.
Recent. I can give you recent ones too. There's a movie called Allied
Mm-hmm.
with Brad Pitt and
Mm-hmm.
the French woman whose name I can never pronounce, Colliard. That
Okay.
movie is like a classic, as good as Casablanca. No one's ever even heard of it.
Yeah.
Amazing movie. The same year came out another amazing movie called Live by Night. Have you ever heard of
Mm-hmm.
that one?
No, I haven't.
That's You got to watch this, bro. It's Ben Affleck. He wrote it and directed it,
Okay.
and it is easily one of the best gangster movies ever, hands down. As good as Godfather 2, as good as Scarface. Amazing movie. Scarface, I loved that movie, and
Yeah.
always will every time through.
Yeah.
Um, Anything Scorsese does, I'm a huge Inglorious Bastards fan.
Mm.
I'll say, as far as comedies go, I just saw a movie called Cocaine Bear.
Oh, see, I wanted to see that Cocaine Bear. It's on
Bro,
Peacock.
you
Yeah.
will not be disappointed. You will
That's
not be disappointed. Very, very funny and entertaining all the way through.
that is my I love that genre of like so bad it's good type movies, you know?
Well, I don't.
Yeah.
And I went to see it with my girlfriend, and we didn't know what to see. And we just both decided, as a goof, let's go see this movie. We really planned on just making out the whole time. We didn't
Right.
plan on watching the movie, but the movie was so good. I didn't even get to do the popcorn trick.
Yeah. Nice. So now that was something that you said off air. It was funny. We were waiting for you to come in, and you were a little bit late, and you was talking about your girlfriend, and you said this is your first time having a girlfriend for a while. Tell us about her.
Oh my God, she's just amazing. Like, I've never had a situation with anybody that I just got along with so well.
Right.
And
Right.
she's just so like loving, supportive. I don't know. I'm waiting, but I don't know what to do, man. I really feel like I'm just receiving a blessing. She's so beautiful. I don't know what the hell she's doing with me. I'm always like sort of suspicious sometimes. I'm like, what's going on? Am I in an elongated like Ashton Kutcher punked episode right here? What's
Yeah.
happening? So it's long distance. She's in Georgia, which I think is good for me because when you're in recovery, they advise you not to get into a relationship, and I think
Sure.
that was probably a very good idea for me, and it helps that
Hmm.
she's not in the same state because it's like a built-in buffer zone, because
Sure.
I have problems moderating myself.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
it's the most healthy relationship I've ever been in, and I think that's probably because I'm not with her all the time. So yeah, we'll see where it goes. But as of now, it's like every time we see each other, it's just like bliss from the time I'm with her to the time she leaves. So
Nice.
hopefully, I'll get to see her in the next few months. Oh yeah,
Oh man.
actually, I rigged it so that the first stop of my comedy tour is in her hometown. See how I
Nice.
did that?
Yeah.
So
Smart.
I'll see her on June 22nd. I'll be in Woodstock, Georgia. Is the opening of my tour.
Nice. And so, how far? How many stops are on your tour?
I'm gonna be nine. I have 9 stops,
Okay.
and it's just like a trial kind of thing to
Hmm.
both feel it out for me to let me see who's going to come out and see me, and also so clubs know whether or not I sell tickets, so they can book me to do a real tour. So it's kind of like
Yeah.
a trial by fire kind of thing.
Nice. That's awesome. And did you set that up yourself, or do you have an agent that you're working through?
I have a guy that's kind of like a TikTok star who reached out to me and he's like, "Bro, I want to go on tour, and I'm a big fan of yours. Do you want to come with me and headline?" And I was like, "Yeah, absolutely, I do." So he's basically the one that found all the venues and set everything up. So no, I don't have an agent.
Hmm.
I'm looking for one. You know anybody,
Mm.
Josh?
I don't. I
Okay,
don't. But
maybe
if I
somebody
did,
will listen to the podcast and
yeah.
contact me.
Yeah, no, that would be great. But it's funny here in Sacramento. There's a big my brother he dabbled in stand up comedy for a while, and there's a here in Sacramento there's the Punchline, and then there's Laughs Unlimited, and then we're right near San
Punchline, right?
Francisco,
Hmm.
and so there's a lot of little venues here. So if you ever go on a stop, I hope you come through here. I'd come and watch your show. That'd be awesome.
That's awesome. I got to say, Sacramento is my ground zero.
Oh yeah,
It's where all hell broke loose, and
yeah.
where my sister lives in a place called, I shouldn't say the name of the city, but you can't go
Mhm.
to 7-Eleven without somebody offering you meth outside 7-Eleven over there.
Oh, I probably know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah,
Dude, so I avoid that hood like the plague, and I hate to, have it be like that, but it be like that.
Yeah. No, I hear you. I have family. So it's funny. Sacramento is you know this, but some people who aren't from around here know this. Sacramento is just a bunch of little suburbs around, but there's some really it's weird because there are some little towns here where like you could have one really nice neighborhood right next to one really not nice neighborhood.
Yes, and
And
that's exactly my sister's setup. She lives in a really nice neighborhood, but like you turn right
yeah,
and go like
yeah.
200 yards, and it's the pits. So
Yeah, yeah, it's crazy. I have a lot of family in a little area called Gridley, California, which is a really nice. It's a nice small city, very rural, lots of farmers. But then there's a couple of cities that you're about 10 minutes away, and boy, you don't want to be
yeah,
out
man.
there.
Like
Yeah,
even I can say, I guess it would be the not a city that I'm avoiding. It's an entire county.
yeah,
And when people see me show up there, because I was in the news and stuff for having gotten arrested there and stuff. And when I went back for court, when people
yeah.
see me around there at like 7-Eleven and stuff, they're like, "Man, what are you doing here? Get out of here!" They're like, "We do not want to see you here. This is bad
Yeah.
news." So I'm like, "I get you. Don't worry. I'm on my way out."
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. I didn't realize you had the ties to the Sacramento area. I love it
Yeah.
here. I've born and raised here, and it's cool being an hour away from the beach and an hour away from the mountains. We
Oh
had the
yeah.
Sacramento Kings who recently pulled out of the cellar, from the in the NBA. So the team is loved so much here, and it's a lot of fun. It's a good place
Oh,
to
it's
raise
yeah, it's
kids.
beautiful there. I was just there and visited the whole which like the Capitol section. What do they call that section there, where the buildings are?
Like Midtown, you mean? You're out in the
Midtown. Yeah,
Midtown?
I guess it's
Yeah.
just Midtown, and
Uh-huh.
yeah, it's beautiful over there. Love
Yeah.
Sacramento.
Well, and then there's Doco. That's where the Golden One Center is, and it's just they've really done a great job of blowing that up and making it really nice. I mean,
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
downtown K Street Mall was really bad for a long time, and putting that arena there ended up being a really good. It revitalized the whole area, so it's really cool. So I appreciate you coming on. I want to ask you a few questions I ask everybody. I mean, we probably know some of the answers to these, but I'm going to ask you anyway. And it's really cool. I also going to say before this, it's cool to see you now. You had such great success in life. It goes to show. I once heard Tom Hanks say something. He goes, "I wish I would have learned earlier the term 'this too shall pass,' right? Because he's like, if things are good, this too shall pass. If
That's
things are
right.
bad, this too shall pass." And
You've got to
you,
learn to just be equanimous.
yeah, yeah. And I try to tell people because I very often get calls from friends or acquaintances when they're in really bad spots, and and I try to remind them, every failure we have, every trial we have, 5, 10 years down the road, you look back and you learn something from it, and it shapes you to be a better person. So
Absolutely. When
yeah,
you're panicking and you're in one of those situations, like you're broke, you can't make your rent or something, it's hard to hear that, to have someone tell
yeah,
you, "Well, listen, something good will come of the situation." But I know for sure now, and this is not even like I don't. This is something I suspected years ago, but it's now something I know for sure that
hmm
every obstacle that is put in my path is there to teach me something or to have me evolve from it in some kind of way.
hmm
And so, as soon as something goes wrong, like I'll get a phone call, something got canceled. I'll start to look around literally in my own life and I'll say, how did I become out of tune to why did I get bad news? And I
hmm
literally look at my life literally in those very minute terms of test and reward. And it
yeah,
almost happens to me on a daily basis. And I find that if I do everything good today, I'll have a smooth tomorrow. So
yeah.
literally, my heaven and hell almost is my reality on a daily basis. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. No, that's good. That's awesome. And that's kind of where I wanted to get. That's where some of these questions go. And I think we're probably going to know where you're going to go with some of these. But your biggest failure in life, what did you learn from it?
My biggest failure in life. I haven't considered what my biggest failure was. So let me think about that.
Yeah.
My biggest fail. Oh, now I know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now I know.
Yeah. What was it, and what did you learn from it?
Well, I don't know. I don't want to. I don't want to call it a failure, but I want to put it in that area, but I don't want to use that term. But
Sure.
I probably would have been had a happier life had I started a family when I was young.
Mm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Probably because I'm a family man, really, and I
Sure.
don't have a family,
Right. Mm-hmm.
so that probably you know
Mm-hmm.
not. And I had the chance to do it,
Mm.
so I see it as almost like I messed it up a little bit because I had that
Sure.
chance and I put the kibosh on it. Hi,
Mm.
sweetie. So
Yeah.
that, and what did I learn from it? Just that we should take life as it comes to us and accept
Mm.
it and not try to um, be the the. It's not that we shouldn't try to control our own destinies, but we should see things that come to us as
Mm.
things that are supposed to come to us.
Yeah.
If that makes any
Yeah.
sense.
It's funny when you bring that
To
up
be
because
accepting of things.
yeah, one thing I've learned over the course of life, and particularly in the last little while when I've gone through some things, is that I think we have a very big illusion of control over things. I used to go like, I start going to, I'm an attorney by trade. And it's like, I started law school. Then next thing you know, I lose my job. I I think certain things are going to happen and they don't. But the thing is 5, 10 years down the road, you're not even going to remember how you felt that day. Like when I
Yeah.
sit there now, I mean, I'm blessed with four kids. I love them to death. I have them all the time with me, and so um, when I'm sitting there, I went to the game 7 of the Kings game against the Warriors. They lost, unfortunately, but
Damn.
I went there with my son, my 16-year-old son, and I'm just sitting there and I'm seeing him so excited. And I think about, him being 2 years old and we ended up having to move out of our house and move into with my parents and all those things. And I'm like, none of that matters anymore.
None of it
You know what I
matters. Yeah.
mean? None
Yeah.
of it matters anymore. And
And that
so,
and that's really a good lesson for life. Like, I know myself. I used to let my past really be a hindrance on my future, and I used to
mm,
carry that stuff around with me like baggage all the time.
yeah,
But it's more healthy to adopt, to really be able to look at things like how you are. Like, I'm
yeah,
sitting here, I'm in a good space,
yeah,
and I'm moving forward. The things that happened to me before, if anybody wronged me or whatever, none of it matters. It only
yeah,
matters if I let it matter, right?
yeah,
So I
absolutely.
think I think you have a good natural ability to let go of things, and it's the difference between a guy like you and me.
Mm, yeah. Well, that's another thing. So, what would you say was your biggest success? You've had lots of successes. What do you think is your
My
biggest success?
biggest success, my biggest success was getting clean. Definitely.
Yeah,
I can't
yeah,
really take credit for all the other successes because I just got my mom pointed me in that direction, and that stuff was very easy for me. I never
yeah.
really felt like I, made some kind of major accomplishment. But getting
Mm,
clean, I think, was my biggest W that I can really take credit for. Although a
yeah,
lot of people helped me out. A
yeah.
lot of people.
Real quick, it seems like you had a really strong love for your mom and your dad. Tell us what they were like.
Well, my parents were fantastic. My dad was just the nicest guy I've ever met and very selfless. And
Mm,
when I was born, he lived his life for me, really. Like, for instance, when I used to go to school, he would drop me off in the morning to go to school. Then he would go to work. And then every day he would go to, like, whatever restaurant and buy me lunch from a restaurant and drop that off for my school lunch.
wow,
So, so
nice.
every day I would have some kind of, whatever fancy entree from whatever restaurant. So that's the kind of dad I had, and just always very proud and supportive. And my mother the same way. They were always just supportive of me and helped me develop a sense of confidence, and they always encouraged me. And they were just very loving parents. So
Oh, that's
unfortunately I can't blame any of my shit on them. Damn it.
yeah.
I mean, I see
No,
these other people, they had really horrible parents. Most people that I've come in touch with that have drug problems, their parents are awful, awful.
yeah,
And
yeah,
unfortunately, like, I don't have the recovery gene, neither of my parents are addicts. And I would say
yeah,
80% of the guys I go to recovery with, their parents were addicts.
yeah.
So, I couldn't
But it
even
goes, but it,
blame
but it
them.
goes to show you something, and that is that addiction really doesn't have a type. You know what I mean? It can catch anybody, and that's why I try to tell my kids. I mean, I do have the addiction gene in my family, and I mean, I eat Chipotle 2 days in a row, and I'm hooked for a week. You know what I mean? And so it's
I
like,
don't know,
so
Josh, if that's quite the same.
right, right. But I mean, but I try to tell them. I go, hey, listen, I don't know if you have it or you're not, but it'd be better to just not find out, right?
Yeah,
And
that's
we'll see.
logical. That's
Yeah,
logic.
yeah,
Some
yeah.
people,
So
I think it really is, Josh. Some people, I think it depends on what your baseline level is. Like, if your
yeah,
baseline, you're just in a good mood and you're happy, like, those people tend not to, like, need to escape so much. But people who
sure.
have depression issues and people that are, I was in treatment, and a guy asked me during one of like, you'd be in group sessions for like 5, 6 hours a day, every day.
Uh,
So I
uh,
logged over 1,000 hours of group therapy. Eventually, I start
wow.
making shit up. Yeah, Pee Wee touched me, but he didn't. He didn't. But I was, you know, these kids, their parents, I would have hear such horrible stories. I forget the point I was trying to tell you. What did I start saying there, Josh?
Well, it's just something you realized. And that's
I
all it's
know. I'm
that.
trying to figure out what it was that I realized.
Yeah.
Oh, oh, right. That I was something that has to do with depression and people's baseline. Um, oh, this is what it was. I'm so glad I remembered. The guy asked me, and that's you want to know what impact does 3 years of methamphetamine have on your system?
Yeah. Yeah.
That right, you just looked at it.
Yeah.
I don't know if
Yeah.
that's because I'm 43 and I just smoked a lot of weed, or if that's the meth. I don't know, but that's as bad as it gets. But
Yeah.
it came around the carousel, so I did remember. He asked me while we were in treatment, in one of these thousands of hours of treatment, what do you hope to get out of coming here? And I thought about it. And I said, I don't know. What should I be hoping to get out of coming here? And he said, we'll never forget. I might forget it temporarily. He said, you should be trying to figure out how to build a life that you don't have to escape from.
Mm.
Wow, that clicked. That clicked.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that made a lot of sense. And I think really those are people that are prone to addiction. People that build lives that they have to get away from
Yeah.
are typically going to end up drug addicts. So people that are usually just better managers of their life, their diet, their exposure to bad things, their substance intake. People that are good managers typically don't fall to addiction as hard. So if you're
Mm.
looking to figure out, personality traits within your own family, I mean, that's a good spot to look at. Obviously, between the four of them, some of them are better managers than others, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah. So, real quick, kind of an aside, if there's somebody here listening who's at the beginning of recovery, are there certain things that you would recommend that they do daily to help with recovery?
absolutely. I would definitely recommend getting professional treatment because if you're on a drug and if you're wondering if you might be, you are.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So if you're on a drug, it can be almost impossible to regroove your record by yourself. And when you go to
Okay.
treatment, you're taking yourself out of your habits and your patterns because you can really have the desire to quit, but if you're going and seeing the same people and you don't know what to do with yourself because every Thursday Todd comes over and you don't know what to do if Todd doesn't come over, so that just is like a built-in thing. It's hard to break these habits without taking yourself out of your regular life. So I think going to
Mm-hmm.
treatment for 30 to 60 days is crucial. So professional treatment, I think 12 steps for anybody that can't afford professional treatment is a great place to start. And I think the 12 steps is a great place to start for anybody with any kind of problem in life, whether you've got just anything. It's a good way
Mm-hmm.
to recalibrate yourself. And then
Mm-hmm.
also what saved my life has been yoga. I found there's
Oh.
something called the I found something called the Isha Kriya. It's spelled like this: ISHA, and then
Mm.
Kriya, KRIYA. And you can
Mm.
YouTube it. And I started doing this practice, and after about 6 months, Josh, no bullshit, I started waking up in like a joyful mood
Wow.
just from doing this practice. It's a scientific system, and a practitioner can explain to you how scientifically it's reorganizing your energy system. I don't understand all that. All I can do is just tell you it worked for me, and that was really, waking up in not a depressed mood where it takes you half an hour to get out of bed will
Yeah.
seriously shift your entire, paradigm. So
Yeah.
those three things is what really
Wow.
worked for me and changed my life around.
Well, that's awesome. Awesome.
And I
Well,
just
listen,
started
I.
working. I just started working at Quest to Recovery. It's with the numeral two, and that's the treatment center that I graduated from. And I'm working there now as a recovery advocate and a recovery coach. I counsel the patients there, and I'm also initiating a program there called Keep It Clean, where we go in and teach the client how to take their personal and childhood trauma and turn it into stand-up comedy material.
Nice. That's awesome. That sounds like
Yes,
fun. So we're gonna have.
super stoked
Well,
about it.
Oh, that's cool. I love that you're taking your natural. You obviously have a natural outgoing personality and a natural humor, and using that to kind of help others. And I think that's really great. So,
That's my only gift, really. So I got to use it. I have no other attributes.
hey, but you know what? I'll tell you what. The thing is, even if that's true, which I'm sure it's not, but if that is true, that's a gift that keeps on giving. Laughter is such a it's
For sure.
hard. It's hard to have a bad day when you're laughing.
I agree
I
with you.
mean,
I and then,
yeah,
nothing will help you kind of just reset than like a good gut laugh, because
yeah,
it lets go of dopamine and things, and it really
yeah.
chemicals become exuded and things like that. It's a chemical reaction that actually does wonders for your system. Have you seen that
Yeah.
documentary somebody made? It was about somebody that found out they had cancer, and it was terminal cancer, and they locked
Mm.
themselves for I think 6 months, a 6 month period, in a hotel room in Las Vegas with nothing but comedy, like Charlie Chaplin movies and Three Stooges and stuff. And after the 6 month period, they went back to the doctor, and they had cured themselves of their cancer.
Wow. Seriously.
Yeah, that's a
Wow.
trip.
That's interesting.
I
That
forget the
is
name, but it's a fascinating documentary.
yeah. Well, listen, I have one more question for you. I want to be mindful of your time, but the next question is one I ask everybody. Some people don't like it, but I'm going to ask it anyway. So, the question is, one day, hopefully long into the future, you're going to pass away, and there's going to be a funeral, and someone's going to give your eulogy. What's the one thing you hope someone says in your eulogy?
That guy was hysterical.
Yeah.
That's it. I just want them to smile and remember me. And you know what? I want them to be upset that I died,
Yeah.
first and foremost.
Yeah.
Some
Yeah.
people die and you're like, eh.
Yeah.
I just want them
Well,
to be sad that I'm not there anymore. And if I lived my life to where, in that way, where people are upset that I died, I'll be good enough.
awesome. It's cool. I love having a podcast, and the reason I love it is because there's no other avenue where we would have met. I mean, other than like if I went to a Comic Con and you were doing signings or something, and even then it wouldn't have been like this. I really have enjoyed talking to you and meeting you,
Me too,
uh,
John.
and I wish you well. And let's have you back as after your tour. Let's have you back on and talk about it and see
That'd be
how
great.
things are going, man. Let's keep in
I'd be
contact.
happy to have you back on. I wanted to make sure that I settled up with you, so to speak, because I saw Esquire down at the bottom of the email, and I didn't want to fuck with it. You know what I mean, Josh? I got enough problems.
Well,
But yeah,
don't
man,
worry
reach
about
out
that.
anytime.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, again, real quick before we end, thanks for listening to the Edlow podcast. Subscribe, and we'll see you guys again soon.
Bye, guys. Quack, quack.